After 1 week break, we're back. This is the GMS Magazine podcast, a podcast all about board games, role-playing games, and the people who make them. Sometimes the
And the
people who
people who
play.
monitor your internet traffic on your YouTube page, apparently.
What?
The post on your recent YouTube video talking about your internet traffic on your YouTube page.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was not in any way homophobic whatsoever.
Oh, no. But that was hilarious. Oh, by the way, humans, I am Paco Garcia, one of your hosts.
And this is Chris Diaz, the other host.
Yeah, and the reason we're talking about this, my wonderful human beings, is because at the time of recording, this podcast is the 4th of June. And that means that this is gay month. This is, Pride month, which is a month to celebrate the queer community who has fought very, very hard to get this recognition. And since I am a very active member of that community, it only makes sense that I join in the celebrations. I am not like these companies that only join the celebration in June. No. I do it all year round because it's kind of my life. And we were talking about it because, as usual, every annum, companies go out there and put the rainbow flag in their logos and say, hey, we are so gay friendly for the next few days. Give us your money because we love you, really. Which I have mixed feelings about. I'd rather that they do that than do nothing at all. I think it sends a message that they want our money. Which is a legitimate message. They are companies and they want money. But above all, it brings out bigots.
Yes, it is. It is kind of like when you're panning for gold and you go.
Yes. And suddenly, they pop. So, as usual.
Well, the gold, which is the good stuff, it floats to the bottom, but all the cheap stuff floats to the top.
Yeah. So, Wizards of the Coast, as usual, and I say this in good faith because I know people in Wizards of the Coast who are queer and who've been pushing very hard for getting queer content within Dungeons and Dragons. And I applaud their efforts. Of course, then there is the whole layer of shit on top of that, which Wizards of the Coast has been throwing around over the last couple of years with the OGL debacle and then an awful lot of layoffs because of Hasbro's bad decisions and wanting to keep, shareholders happy. And then their AI practices, which we will talk about in just a second. But as they usually do, they have this image to commemorate and celebrate gay pride. And they put it everywhere. And immediately, people in droves come out with, leave politics out of games and things like that, which is a bit
It's like the hilarious one because I've been catching up on my Star Trek watching, and I always love the post when people were just like, "When did Star Trek go woke?" And someone's like, 1967.
Yeah, chapter 1. That's it.
Now that being said, like Star Trek, it was a when did they go woke? Well, they tried to go woke. Sometimes they were a little misguided, where they're like, "We're making a stance." We're like, I get your spirit and I applaud you trying. You might want to try just a teeny bit harder.
Yeah.
Like, Roddenberry was great when it came to race relations and so forth. He had unfortunate issues when it comes to gender roles that unfortunately a lot of people didn't really come to head until years after he passed away. We realized, oh, yeah. So he was really, really good with race relations. Not really good with all the other ones. Like, if you ever watched gender roles in the original Star Trek, it's a little cringy.
Yeah, but I get it.
Yeah.
Look, I totally understand that even though this is in no way, shape, or form a justification or to say, okay, it was fine to be this way, because it wasn't. It really wasn't. But I understand that different times bring up different people. I understand it. I'm not justifying it. Okay. I'm not saying that it is okay to be like that in 1960. It is not. There were people who weren't like that in 1960, and therefore there was already a way to learn these things, but it wasn't as readily available. So what I'm trying to cut some slack to people who were like that. So I'm prepared to cut some slack to Gene Roddenberry. I'm prepared to cut some slack even to Gary Gygax, who was very, very misogynist, extremely so. And I don't know how homophobic he was, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was very homophobic too. But
I find it interesting that I hate to be the one to say it, but I have to admit that within the original D&D community, we're talking back in the 80s and the 90s, this was a bit of don't ask, don't tell, right? And while that was something, it was not necessarily the good thing, but it was this weird, stupid compromise that we didn't have to make. And what bothered me the most was when people were like, there are people that are just like, the D&D believes in inclusiveness and equality, and you could play whatever you want. And then a whole bunch of players open their mouths and like, yeah, we've been running our games the way we run. You haven't told us how to run our games for 50 years. We've had characters, like we've had players playing against gender. We've had players playing against sexuality all this time. We just don't bother telling you about it because this was back in the 80s. There was no social media. But then I counter, I go, yeah, but the problem was there was this assumption, this belief, because the industry was being run at the time by a large group of heterosexual white males. So it was that unfortunate situation that coincides with that don't ask, don't tell, where sometimes you kind of have to say it. No, we are pushing for equality. So even people say, you don't have to say that. You go, yeah, it's actually they kind of do because because we know who's been running the show for the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, but okay. But the thing I find it funny, though, the thing I find it really, really funny is how people still cling on to Gary Gygax's alleged dream for D&D, which I find absolutely hilarious. The people keep saying things like, oh, just keep these away. Why do you keep killing Gygax's dream? I was like, wait a second, mate.
What dream? He wasn't Roddenberry. This was an idyllic view of fantasy.
Firstly, what dream? Secondly, and this is because I am an optimist who believes that people change and that people can change for the better in time.
Right.
I would love to believe that if Gygax were alive today, he would be a different person from the person who wrote in the early noughties that women are not neurologically wired to play war games and role-playing games. He wrote that in a forum that still circulates around. I would love to believe that today he would have seen things differently and would be a better person. That's just me. I don't have any reason to think that would be the case, other than, as I said, my very own optimism. So why do people keep thinking that Gygax would think like they do? It completely and utterly baffles me. It makes to me no sense whatsoever. But there it goes. So this morning I went onto Twitter and spent a while going through some of the replies that Wizards of the Coast's post had, and quite frankly, I find them absolutely hilarious. There was one, though, that really and genuinely saddened me. This guy was going on about how the game and the experience was better in the past when people got abused for playing D&D, which left me absolutely dismayed.
It was better
when they were being bullied for playing D&D.
It was that. This is something somebody brought this up a couple days ago, which I thought was hilarious. When someone's like because a lot of people liked D&D when it was the game played by outcasts. Like that was the belief. if you were a nerd, if you were a geek, if you played D&D, you were ostracized, you were made fun of, you were bullied, and then you formed your own tight-knit community. And then the person's comment was like, isn't that a community though? Like if you're being ostracized and you're hanging out with friends D&D, aren't you now your own new community? So it's like, how in the world could this person was kicked out of all his friends groups, so he played D&D, with friends. And it was just like, no, you simply pushed away one circle of people and embraced another circle of people. There was not really being ostracized because you just simply went, okay, these people don't mesh with my viewpoints on fun. I'm going to choose this group of people. So it was just like, yeah, you might have been ostracized by one group, but you're not. It's this idea of like, of nerds and geeks being loners. Like they rarely were loners. They just simply moved away from the community that they weren't meshing with and then found another one. So I always find that hilarious about the idea of, it was better when people in the phase where we're being bullied. I go, well, so like, does that like usually equates it to being ostracized? And when you're ostracized, usually it means you are separated completely and isolated. But people playing D&D were never isolated because they were playing D&D with people.
Well, exactly. I mean, D&D has always been, I mean, until the solo RPG experience was invented, RPG was a social thing. But I mean, I don't know this because I am not from the US. So I don't have the 80s geek experience. But I believe that people were very badly persecuted and bullied by, the popular kids for playing D&D, for being studious and,
So the hilarious thing is for me is that as someone who's 49, who's turning 50 in 1 month, that the Satanic Panic, which was where like there were two outrages. One was nerds play D&D, and then there was the Satanic Panic where D&D was killing our youth. Now that period was in the late 70s and the early 80s. A lot of people think that it was through the entire history of D&D. It was dead by the mid 80s. Like the idea of D&D being the satanic thing, that lasted 5-6 years. A lot of people think it lasted 10 or it lasted the entire history of D&D. It exploded in the early 80s and it was dead by the late 80s. So it was a very short period of time. The idea of nerds being made fun of, generally when it comes to elementary, because they know Americans have elementary, they have middle school and high school. In Canada, we have elementary school and high school. So we have grades 1 to 7. And then when you hit 8 to 12, that's high school. And the only type of separation, of ostracization, generally, and this is where things get a bit brutally honest, nobody was ever ostracized or bullied for the games they played, for the groups they hung out with when it comes to nerd social circles. Nobody was made fun of for liking Star Trek. They were made fun of for the classics. They were made fun of because of perceived sexuality. They were made fun of because of perceived unattractive features. They were made fun of for their weight. And that's when people go like, oh, they made fun of the nerds. No. They made fun of me because I was fat. They didn't make fun of me because I was a nerd. They made fun of me because I was fat. They made fun of him. He was a nerd. No, they made fun of him because he was the one person in that class who we knew was gay. That's people kind of, I hate it when people use people bullying nerds and geeks. In my entire life, I have never seen anyone bullied or made fun of for being a nerd or a geek. They like using that as a way, but in the end, they made fun of them because of specific views to make them superior.
Okay.
It could be gender, it could be sexuality, it could be weight, it could be anything.
I get your point, but two things about that reasoning. I have two concerns about that reasoning. One, were you in Canada or in the US?
This was, like I said, I'm only speaking for personal experience. I'm not saying this is it. I'm just saying from my standpoint, nobody was ever ostracized for being a nerd. It was entirely based around.
And I get it. I'm only concerned about the fact that your experience, because you're in Canada, is completely different from the experience pretty much anywhere else, because every country has had its own experience. My Spanish experience playing role-playing games is wildly different
Oh
from
yeah,
that
of
of
course,
the US.
absolutely. I'm just
But
talking
secondly,
about
but
from
wait a
my
second.
personal experience.
I know, I understand, but what I am I'm kind of concerned by the way that you're saying this is that because you didn't say it didn't happen, and I can assure you that I know an awful lot of people in my Facebook circles who did go through that, and I'm not going to name names because it's not my story to tell,
Mm.
but I know people who are very, very well known who did go through an awful lot of bullying because they were nerds, whether they were
Yeah.
nerds of D&D or any other thing, but it is because they were nerds, and yes, because they also had some physical features that other people saw as undesirable. So believe me, that has happened, and I wouldn't want anybody listening to this podcast to feel invalidated or that they are not seeing, because
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah.
We believe those experiences. I believe
Yeah.
those experiences did happen.
Yeah.
So
Like I said, I'm speaking from my large circle of friends that I had. I was overweight, obviously, but I had a circle of friends. I had elementary and I had high school, going into college and so forth. Yeah, I mean, I was my whole like several people I knew I was heavily bullied. I was bullied through so many. Like my parents insisted I go to a new school. I went to a Christian school, right? And I was bullied in every school I went to. I was and then all my friends went to one school. My parents insisted I go to another school because it was better and closer. So I suddenly was in a school where I had no friends, and it was very, very troubling for me. And I know that obviously, as someone who is a solid nerd and a geek and so forth, um, you know, I was painfully aware. I guess it comes down to when someone wants to ostracize you, they'll find something.
oh, of
They'll find
course,
something.
of
And
course.
and in my experience, they'll take the surface before they have to dive into the inner mind. So it's easy to that point make fun of physical appearances, and then, like I said, if someone is being ostracized and bullied, and they can't go after someone's physical appearance, then they'll go after something else. But somebody who obviously was a kid and hung out with a lot of kids. Kids generally go with the easy target first before they start diving into the more complex ones.
Definitely. I would like to address, though, one comment that I have received in the video that I released this morning. There will be a link in the show notes, even though it's going to be in this channel as well. But Bareback Jones 93, it's called BB Jones 93, so I'm guessing that BB is bareback, because I don't know what else it could be for. He says, "Oh, bless your heart, that channel says obvious most bland thing for views in Pride Month, brave and stunning." Wow, like your comment then, which is like a dead channel. Okay, he says important things are the husks of the future. If you know anything about channels, you take the average views for the past 2 years only to see how it's doing, minus outliers, which are usually hot topic clicks rather than channel fans. This channel gets on average about 150 views a video, yes, and I'm being generous, good for you. It is dead. No, it isn't. His gleeful gloating in this video is just ugly and shallow. Sorry. Instead of celebrating the month and what it stands for, he's owning people. That is very sad and pandering. There is nothing of value in his or any video I clicked on. Well, I have several things to tell you. Firstly, I publish content in this channel pretty much every effing week. This ain't dead. Just because I don't get an awful lot of views, which, believe me, I couldn't care any less about views, subscribers, amount of time people watch my channel. Honestly, it is not why I do this. I rather have 5 views of people who care what I have to say than 500,000 of people who don't give a monkeys. I don't care. I treat my subscribers pretty much like friends because I love interacting with them. And the people I am owning, and thank you, by the way, for admitting that I am owning those people, is because they're fucking bigots.
Mm.
They are homophobic pieces of shit that I will be more than happy to own every fucking day of my life because I am sick and tired and fed up of their rhetoric. And anybody defending them, like you're doing, Mr. Bareback, is actually just one of them. And he goes back to say, read back what I said. Not one word was homophobic, but it seems to be your method to just dismiss people with slurs. No, matey boy,
No, yeah.
your words don't have to be. Your actions are, and the people that you are defending are, and the way that you are attacking somebody from the queer community. Well, I don't know if you are from the queer community. I'm going to guess that you're not. Surprise, is fucking homophobic. So I don't know if he's ever going to listen to this.
I assume he's going to be. I assume he's going to go to every channel with 3,000 subscribers who doesn't have who have the exact same traffic, because there's about 4.5 billion of those, I do believe, last count. So I hope he's going to all of those channels complaining about how dead their channel is. I'm surprised he hasn't come to my channel, which has 1,000 subscribers, and I haven't posted anything in about 4 or 5 months. Why hasn't he posted that on my channel?
Because he's a homophobe. But seriously, this is something.
It's the quarterling. It's that passive deflection. It's the same equivalent of why isn't there a straight Pride Month? That comment, you hear that one all the time, right? It's like, where's the straight Pride Month? And I'm like, it's the other 11 months of the year, you fucking idiot.
Exactly. So anyway, and the thing, I find this something really, really, really funny. I think we have ingrained, social media, especially things like TikTok and YouTube and Twitter, they have ingrained in us so deeply already that viewership and follower count, that those are the two things that matter the most, and that without those you're nothing, that they completely forget the reasons why people do what they do. I do this podcast because I want to have a weekly conversation with my friend, which is you, by the way.
Yeah.
I do the interviews because I genuinely believe that the community of game makers, both board games and role-playing games, is absolutely amazing, and my life is better because I know them.
For me, like I said, I'm always amazed, and unfortunately this is an American thing, that they have normalized the outrage specifically to Pride. I go, it's like, because everyone talks about, like, where's this, where's that, and all this, and the homophobes come out, and we should probably call this awkward straight guy month, because it gets a lot of people really. And for me, it's that, like, Black History Month is February, Women's History Month is in March. I'm like, why aren't you guys coming out and bitching about equality? No, right? Because it's somehow the American rhetoric has normalized this level of bigotry, because and the funny thing is the fact that, and this is the unfortunate truth, is that a lot of these people feel that they can make these homophobic or anti-LGBTQ remarks with impunity, but they know they can't do that during Black History Month or Women's History Month, because they know and it's weird. I go, like, I do believe almost every person that I've encountered that says something stupid during this month, they get the same blowback from the other people who make disparaging comments at the other months. I'm going, why do you think you're immune during this month? Why do you think I can say something? It's just like, and I made a comment to someone who's just like, this is the only time that I will ever encounter you, and my opinion of you is now low. So now for that entire history, you are going to live knowing that the only encounter you and I ever had, I have now the absolute minimal opinion of you. Gradually, like, every single time I want to meet someone, I'm hoping for a positive encounter. It doesn't always happen, but I don't start the conversation with, "Oh, you're a shithead." Like, you open the conversation with a shitty comment, and now you will always know that there is someone out there that dislikes you. It's like
and I think something else they do which they don't like hearing when I tell them. Something else they do is that they show their cowardice because they all pretend that they are not bigots.
Yeah.
Oh, no, but I have
Which is that
friends.
comment, right?
Yeah, exactly. Nothing I said was, no, listen, you're a bigot, just own it. You are a bigot. Why hide? Why are you? And I don't mean just this fella. I mean everybody who goes to these things and say, "Oh, disgusting! Oh, I hope that Wizards of the Coast goes bankrupt," which is like, wow, you must be such an evil motherfucker to wish that upon not just the people who work at Wizards of the Coast and the community, but also yourself. You want the company that produces the game that you seemingly love to actually go bankrupt.
I always remind them of the fact that D&D is Creative Commons now. It's not owned by anybody.
That's the other thing, exactly.
And I keep on telling people that it's like we got to take D&D down. It's like D&D is open source. You're taking down. It's like taking down. You're taking down a community-owned Creative Commons property. It's kind of like saying it's those same people just like we have to take down Disney because of Star Wars. We have to take down Star Wars. I'm like, no. Star Wars is your youth, it's your children, and so forth. You don't have to take down Star Wars because of Disney. You don't have to take down. You don't have to. It's like people talk about like once again hating on Star Trek, and I'm like, when did Star Trek touch you inappropriately? Star Trek's been around for a very, very long time. It's going to be there, and it's always going to have your memories. Like, and for me, the funny thing is that I'm loving this new track. I love Discovery so much.
Me too. I think it has become, after DS9, has become my favorite. The last thing I would like to say about this is for all those people who say, "Oh, I don't want to," I will always forever keep saying to all of them two main things. One, nobody's forcing you to be in this hobby and play these games. Ever. Just like you're trying to force us to go, not gonna happen. Get used to it. So if you don't like it, go play something else. Go do something else. Or secondly, do it yourself. I have been for decades hearing people telling me if I want gay characters, I can have them around my table. You know what? If you want straight characters, you can have them around your table too. Thank you very much. But from now on, every single orc, kobold, Aethelite, beholder, dragon, gnoll, human, elf, or anything in D&D, as far as I'm concerned, is queer. Every single one of them. Elminster is going to be called Elmistress from now on, as far as I'm concerned. Simple as that.
As a GM, I know that like I said, when I always talk about it, and I've never denied it, that my youth, both as just a person and as an RPG player, mostly as a DM, as a player, I have said and done things that I'm not happy about. When you're young, especially depending on where you're living, and I won't make excuses for it. These are things I said. Thank God there's no internet. There was no social media back then where I looked at things I said. I will be 100% on. I'll tell you this right now. When I was gaming, this is back when late teens, and I was a GM, I had a rule that you couldn't play against your gender.
Okay.
I fully admit I had that rule. And for me, like my brain didn't even acknowledge why. And I'll tell you when I realized, I was like, oh, I'm a shithead. And that was, for me, when I'm talking to my players, I very much impose, like when I look at a player, no matter how many drawings they have for their character, I kind of look at my player and go, no, that's you. Because I've played with so many players where they're just playing themselves. Most people, I think a lot of people do. They play themselves. Not a lot of people dive into a role and a persona and act against type. A lot of them play themselves, which is so common that when I look at a player, I always assume I'm talking to the character. So when someone is completely different and gender and so forth, I sometimes forget. And I've had players like, I'm actually a dude. And I'm like, shit, sorry. I talked. And so I made that rule. And I realized later when I had a friend who very often, they became very much, they played against their type. They were born male and they always played female characters. Many years later, when they came out as trans, I was just like, that's on me. I realized like, yeah, Yeah, it's not always the case. Some people just want to play against type, and there could be absolutely no inner motivation for people to want to play against type in whether it be they're playing with their gender, sexuality, race, anything. I mean, I am stupid whenever I play. I'm very narrow. Whenever I play a character in a game, I generally play like even when I was young, I was playing a older white. Every character I played was me now. Even when I was 20, I was playing me now. I was always an old white guy. It was very boring.
Well,
Um,
but we play
and
what
for
we
me,
know.
exactly. And so I applaud people who play against type for just no other reason, just to try something different. But for me, I learned. I guess I was getting in my 20s. So I was just like, why does it matter? Let people play what they play. So that's one thing. So I understand where sometimes people come from, but that's that character growth. It's acknowledging that, you know, yes, people can say those things and then they can get better with as they age and try to be a better person.
Uh,
Um,
and I think that I believe that that is a sign that we are becoming better. You know, when
yeah.
we can look back and think, "Oh my God, I was such an asshole." I'm glad I'm not that person anymore. We are growing. That is a good thing. That really is a good thing. So
There's
anyway,
something. So this is I'm going to transition into the next topic. I'm going to do it skillfully to the point where you're going to go, wow, that was amazing. So there is, speaking of, an article that page was going on talking about evolving from violent language. Have you seen this one?
I have not.
It was, instead of saying this, say this, and a lot of people hated the post because they felt like they were policing PC dialogue. But I looked at it and said, I never noticed how default violent the English language is. Right?
Okay.
Let's go. We're going to pull the trigger on this project, right? Rather than we're going to launch this project. It's always going to be we pull the trigger. I'll take a stab at it. Did we jump the gun? I'll bite the bullet. That'll kill two birds with one stone. What's the deadline? We have to pick our battles. Can you shoot me an email? That was overkill. I bombed the presentation. Let's roll with the punches. We can soften the blow. I'm going to take a shot in the dark, right? Let's not beat a dead horse. I was blown away by the presentation. I was kicking around an idea. He's a straight shooter in the meetings. And I was looking and going, what the hell? Why is it there is so much biased, violent language? Speaking once again about words and wordplay.
Well, there is one thing to consider though, and is that some of those expressions do not etymologically originate from an act of violence.
Yeah.
Like from I'm kicking around, that comes from sports, or jumping the gun, that also comes from athletics.
Athletics, yeah.
So beating a dead horse, it comes from racehorse,
Yeah.
horse
But it is
racing.
hilarious, of course. They started races by shooting a gun in the air.
Well, I think it's because it was an easy way to make a loud noise.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they could have used something else, but I don't know. But yeah, I don't know how to feel about those things, because I believe that words, it doesn't matter where they come from. The meaning they have today is the meaning that truly matters. And even if
Yeah.
it came from a place of violence, if they're not used in a context of violence,
Mhm.
I don't have a problem with that. And
Yeah.
I
Very
am
good point.
not. I am the opposite of a linguistic prescriptivist.
Mm.
People say, oh, but etymologically the word marriage comes from so and so and so, and therefore it has to be a union between a man and a woman. And you think, well, marriage doesn't mean that. If the union between a man and a woman, if that's the word you want to use, then you would have to use concubinium.
I found out that the word dick in reference to a private detective or when they refer to a police officer as a dick or referring to a independent detective as a dick, I didn't realize that was Romani.
Hmm.
But on a related topic, this is my transition again, a backer of a Kickstarter project, I'm quoting now, a backer of a Kickstarter project I'm contracted to work on has withdrawn their pledge because he worked for Wizards of the Coast.
Oh my God, I saw that poor guy.
So
And
Aiden
again,
Bernstein,
who is, by the way, utterly adorable, and he's a wonderful, wonderful human being. Seriously, Ethan is amazing.
Yeah. So the post was, I really hate having to do this, but I'd like to withdraw my support for this project. Hiring a sensitivity reader from WotC is an absolute deal breaker. I work way too hard for my money to have it given to a West Coast activist to lecture me about how evil I am for being born the way I was born. I would never have backed this project if this person's involvement hadn't been disclosed from the beginning. I consider adding them now to be a fraudulent bait and switch. It truly saddens me to have to make this request, blah, 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 blah. But I'm done with giving my money to people who hate me. A man is judged by the company he keeps, and a company is judged by the men he keeps. And it is time for us to part ways. Anyway, so he says, it's on the pledge because I've worked with WotC. I hate him. I will lecture him with the nefarious power of my West Coast activism, and I am a corporate shill because obviously I have significant influence over Cynthia and Chris, and I'm thrilled that I was laid off for my excellent, completely logical, financially responsible reasons. Anyway, so
that kind of people who withdraw because Ethan was working for a company who hates him for the way he is probably the kind of people who celebrates Pride Month, Straight Month. He wants to celebrate straight pride because it doesn't make a single shrill of sense what he is saying, and I found it absolutely hilarious, and I felt really sorry for Ethan because he doesn't deserve that.
Yeah, which then transitions us to talking about Wizards of the Coast. See that? You see how I transitioned those two little stories?
That was very, very subtle. But I'm thinking we should start having the way that Wizards fucked section, because they're doing it so often that at this rate, we're going to have our 15 minutes of how the Wizards fucked section pretty much every episode. They are just not putting one foot forward correctly recently, aren't they?
Jane Stephanie Sterling has a not a regular entry, but they made a very popular segment about fuck Konami news. All the news that are fit to say fuck Konami. Konami is a very well known game publisher that is vilified in the industry because of how they treat their artists. And so it's like we're gonna have the fuck WotC news, all the news that are fit.
So anyway, let's go into why Wizards of the Coast fucked it up this week.
So yes, Wizards of the Coast, they have posted a article. I actually had it here just a second ago, and let's see if I can find it, where they have posted well, please note the Wizards of the Coast have a solid AI policy. We'll just go along with that. And they have now also posted an official job posting for a principal AI engineer. So what you'll do, work closely with internal, external teams to define and drive the strategic roadmap for AI integration in our tools, pipelines, and game products. Be an advocate with vision in AI, working closely with other teams to build roadmaps and timelines. Explore new uses for AI in all levels of game development. Design, build, and deploy systems for intelligent generation of text, dialogue, art assets, NPC behaviors, real-time bot frameworks. Design and develop libraries for teams. Well, you'll bring 7 years experience in an engineering lead capacity, proven experience with AI, ML systems in at least one of the following areas: simulation, asset creation, generative content. Ability to drive consensus on approach and solutions to more creative, consistently high-quality game software. Now, a couple of things I'll say. I won't go through the whole thing. I have 2 comments before you jump in. One, they have stated, of course, that this is in relation to video game products. They are not replacing artists. And this is something which comes into play where I wouldn't say I understand. I say I can see where they're trying to say, like, video, like AI, when someone says AI, they automatically think AI generated artwork. And then they go, well, that's it. And I look at it and go, you realize that AI system, there's about 1 trillion different variations of that. But there is a very narrow view of what people think AI is. And so I can see why people can be confused when they see principal AI engineer, that people thinking, oh, they're going to use AI art in all their books. And that's kind of something that a lot of people are getting at. When we look at the people talking about the hypocrisy, where they're posting pride images and the comments on their X profile, a lot of people saying, is like, it's how hypocritical to post pride content while you're also posting AI content. And I look at that and go, this Wizards of the Coast employs hundreds of people. There is a group of people handling social media and a group of people developing AI and AI systems for video games. They don't necessarily talk to each other. So this happens very, very often where the left hand and right hand aren't communicating. So yes, there's a part of WotC that's committed to making sure that they're posting this pride content during this month. And then there's another division over here that is working on generative content. And they are not part of the same community.
But also, to be honest, I just don't think that either of those two things relate. I think you can be very inclusive and want to employ queer people and all sorts of people from different backgrounds, and that's absolutely amazing. And you want to do shitty things with them, like AI. So that's it. Now they've got absolutely nothing to do. What I find funny about it is that they are specifically asking for somebody who will work with generative content, but they don't specify if it is images, words, 3D models. So, you can create an open world with open cities that each game is going to have a different city to play with, and the cities will evolve differently, and the NPCs will behave differently depending on where you are. They don't say absolutely anything at all like that. So I think it is safe to assume that generative AI that they openly claim they want to use could easily be images, whether it is based on the artwork that they already own, like the thousands upon thousands of images in the Magic the Gathering catalog, which they have already hinted they want to use for that. So,
I guarantee you, I wouldn't be surprised that Wizards of the Coast's way of trying to circumvent the ethical, unethical debate was to say, well, we own the rights, 100% exclusive rights to every single illustration made for Magic the Gathering. And this is true. So this is
no. Wait a second. No. Wait a second. They own the exploitation rights, not the copyright. They can never, ever. Wait a second. Let me finish. Under any circumstances, they can say this image has been created by somebody else, or make an use of that image that the original artist would not agree on. They cannot do that. Copyright completely forbids.
Unfortunately, I have to disagree. Depending entirely on the contract that the artist signed, Wizards might have the right. This is one thing. This is very true also in the writing community. If, for example, when you write an episode for a television show, or you're doing an illustration for something, right? If you write an episode of Star Trek, you have to have clauses in your contract whether or not you get reimbursement if the original characters you created get employed again, right? And these are the things in there. But in a lot of contracts, especially some artists, there is clauses where they basically say, we own this in all respects, in all perpetuity, forever. When they're saying, I'm paying you $500 for this piece of artwork. And although nowadays, in the last 5 to 10 years, there has been a push for more temporary and recursive licensing and more specific verbal lingo in a lot of these old contracts, I wouldn't be surprised that there was a large gallery of artwork that Wizards has access to, that they can do anything they want with it.
I can only speak from the point of view of the European copyright laws. And I can assure you that there are things that it doesn't matter if you sell your work. There are things that you cannot say. If I do a painting and somebody pays me for that painting, that person, that company would not be allowed to say that somebody else painted it.
Oh, no. Credit is a different story. But for example,
that is copyright. That is copyright. Again, we need to differentiate between exploitation rights and copyrights. They're completely different things.
So what I'm getting at is that I would not be surprised if Wizards, because this is what's happening with Adobe. With Adobe, they are saying basically, that every image in their catalog they can use now to train an algorithmic model, and they say they are on ethical grounds because they have legal access to that artwork. And I wouldn't be surprised. No, I'm not going to say this is right or wrong. I'm saying that Wizards of the Coast could try to make that same claim and saying we're going to train an algorithmic generative model using all the artwork that Wizards of the Coast owns.
Which I'm sure they will. But again, because I'm talking from the point of view of an European with European law, I don't know if it is the same in the United States, because I've seen something recently in Twitter that I will go into in just a second. But I know for a fact that at the very least in Europe, Adobe must give the choice of opting out. I think the ethical thing would be to give the choice of opting in, and it is a no unless there is a specific yes. But they must do it, because even if they own the rights to use the image, they don't own the rights to transfer the image. If that makes sense. So
right now, that's the issue right now with the States and Canada, North America, is that right now there are no legal specific dialogue that says what the rights are in relation to generative content. And right now, everyone's holding their breath because they don't know. The issue I have is that currently we are seeing these generative models being used without monitoring, with
no transparency whatsoever.
Yeah. But the thing is, we're seeing that a lot of this in other countries. We're seeing this in China. We're seeing this in India, where they already don't really care about copyright in general.
True.
And so they don't care. And so I know that there's going to be this push in North America to try to pass this, to make it permissible to allow this AI integration. And so some of the artists are going to be on guard, because now they'll feel that their rights are being stripped. And the argument they're going to make is that China already is ahead of us on this field. We need to compete. And the only way to compete is to take advantage of the assets that we have.
I think that is going to happen. And also because I reckon that in the US, it's going to depend on court rulings for the law to go one way or another. Courts are probably going to rule, and this is a lucubrating, okay, so I could be wrong. I don't think I will be, but I could be wrong. Courts are going to go into corporations' favor, because they are going to be able to afford the best lawyers who are going to be able to convince the jurors. So it's going to depend on what people like Disney and Paramount, or Viacom.
And that's golf fries. It's Google, it's Apple. It's like whenever people talk about the big companies, I'm like, oh, they're gonna go after Warner Brothers. They're like, no. It's the big ones. It's the social media giants. Those are the ones you have to be the most worried about.
Yeah, well, let's not forget that even though they may not be as big, and I don't know the size of each company, so I don't give a shit either. But let's not forget that Disney managed to change the copyright laws to extend it so people couldn't use Mickey Mouse for another number of years. They are that powerful.
Oh yeah. So, although they remember the original Mickey Mouse character is now public domain. They couldn't. Yeah, no,
they couldn't stop it forever. But it would have come into the public domain a number of years earlier.
Oh yeah,
if they hadn't gone their way. So they are powerful enough to do that. Let's not forget that. Even if they are not the size of Google, that doesn't matter. They are big enough. So we'll see. Now, of course, Wizards of the Coast immediately has replied to all the criticism, saying, "Oh, no, we stand with this. We stand with our AI policy, and we're never going to allow it. We're going to protect artists."
The part that bothers me about that line is that, and I'll say this as apologetically as possible to visual artists, is like, no, we're going to always hire artists. We're not going to eliminate artists. We're just using it for generative dialogue. You mean replacing writers?
Who, of course, are not artists, aren't they? No,
exactly.
No.
Or for voice generation. Oh, you mean voice actors? And that's unfortunately where I get annoyed with, because the controversy is right now being lasered on visual artists. And I have several friends that are voice actors that are getting really chap-assed. They're getting really frustrated that they can't be part of the conversation. They're trying to be part of the conversation, and very often they're being ignored. Writers are just being hunted to the trash because no matter how many, like right now, the most popular search engine, the most popular generative model you think is Midjourney. Midjourney has about 16 million people. It's the largest visual generative model system on the market. ChatGPT has 60, I think like 35 million people, and that was like 6 months. That was like a year ago. It was the fastest growing app in history. It's the #1 app on the App Store. It has more people signed on than any other app in history, and nobody's trying to take it down.
There is somebody who is being even more hurt by this, and nobody's thinking about them either. Translators.
Oh, there are industries that are going to be dead. Like, but the thing is, AI translations have been around for how long?
For a very, very long time, but they're getting increasingly better. I mean, I literally know people who are able now to take a book in English, translate it with DeepL into Spanish or French, and instead of hiring an interpreter or a translator, they just hire an editor, or they edit it themselves to correct whatever mistakes there might be.
Oh, yeah. I was talking about that. People talk about, oh, they're stealing artists. Is like, in the last 15 years, we have seen dozens of careers vanish without the outrage. And I being old enough, I remember where the projectionists went on strike because all the new projectors were entirely digital and they needed to press a button, and you didn't need to have projectioners or projectioners union. And there was a huge strike that lasted about 2 years. And I knew a lot of people that couldn't see a movie in a theater because they weren't allowed to cross the picket line. These guys never got their jobs back. These people all lost their jobs. Projectionists don't exist as an entity in North America, or at least in Canada anymore, not in a official standpoint with the big companies. And so the same thing with certain types of engineers, certain types of systems. Editing, as editors, people talk about like I don't know. I have one editor that I employ, but even then he comes on board as a polish because I have 2-3 systems that I pay for that can do the job for me, and I'm trying to save money. But there's another job that got sacrificed. It's because, and I hate to say this, it's because the job was creative. We had such a sacred gulf, this type of communion with with artists, the creatives. We can't let the creatives be sacrificed, but all the other livelihoods, we don't respect those, so those can go away. And the number of times I have been seeing people criticize and shit on legit careers that people love because it's not creative. And I look at it and go, no, they were perfectly happy with that job that technology took away. Why is the job the more important one? And they were always taken, but because creativity is the realm of humanity. No, human satisfaction and joy. That's the whole point of existing, is to live a life where you're happy. It doesn't matter how you get to it. You could be an artist, you could be a plumber. It doesn't matter. The point is, technology claims one thing, and I find it interesting that suddenly so many people are drawing the line here, where all the people's jobs that were wiped out before that are going, why is it now you are generating outrage? And I can see it. I'm a writer. I'm getting angry at the amount of AI, but I also am fully aware of all the people behind me that have been like, yeah, we've been talking about this for 15 years. And it's hard for me to not acknowledge the hypocrisy. And sometimes I get a little frustrated with certain artists where I ask them, like, when the voice actors got their careers wiped out 3 years ago, where were you?
I think there are two things to keep in mind about that. One is that it is true that we mostly see our own circles. So it is likely that an awful lot of people didn't even think about other possibilities. But secondly, I think most importantly, I think nobody was expecting that AI was going to take the turn it's taken so quickly.
Oh, rapid.
Because I remember the first few times AI were used in video games that were used to lower down the difficulty of the game if you were failing too often. So the difficulty would be adaptive to your level of skill. And everybody thought that that was actually very cool. And when AI was introduced in video games for NPCs to behave differently, or depending on what decisions you were making within the game, and everybody thought that was very, very cool. I did. But I don't think that anybody thought that generative images or generative text was going to become so ubiquitous, so in brackets, okay, good in brackets, and so accessible so quickly and so cheap so quickly. No, I don't think anybody thought that. So nobody saw it as an enemy until it was too late. And that is one of the problems with AI. I've said many times, sorry, just to finish. I said many times, I absolutely love the technology. I think it can do incredible things. I hate how it is being used, and I hate how much hurt and pain is bringing onto people's lives, which is why I am not an advocate for AI. That's why I am not a supporter, not because of the technology, but because of the consequences of the misuse of the technology because of corporate greed.
I said two things recently on posts. One person was talking about dealing with Alphabet, which is Google's new policy. And the quote from, I don't think it was Sundar, who's the guy who runs this division, Alphabet, was saying the fact that the quote was, AI will take your jobs. People using AI will take your jobs. This was the quote from this guy from Google. I think his name was Jack. I can't remember. What's his name? I think it was Jack Dorsey. Yes, that's his, Jack Dorsey. Anyway, so I think Jack Dorsey was Twitter or something. Anyway, and Jack said that was his quote. And somebody was talking about the evils of AI and this and so forth. And I came a comment and said, AI isn't taking your jobs. People using AI aren't taking your jobs. Jack is taking your job. And then I made another comment on another post entirely when someone was talking about the evils of AI. I said, AI isn't evil. Do you want to know what's it's like, this is not a fight between us and AI. This is a fight between us and capitalism. This like AI is just the latest thing. It is huge. It is probably one of the biggest upsets to the social fabric of society since the onset of computerization in the 70s. When computerization hit, it changed everything. And then the internet came and it changed everything. Jobs were wiped out, whole ideas and the whole aspect of how humanity approached things changed. The fact that suddenly we could access knowledge, we could access technology, and then we could access all knowledge and touch every living soul on the planet that was connected. These are huge. AI is the next big thing. And because every one of those, they were taken advantage of within our free market capitalist society. And so I say, if someone's like, this is evil, well, so was the internet, so was computers, so was the atomic age. And it's us. It's us. We're the problem. If we had, I hate to say it, but if we had a more social aware, we had more equality, more equity, if we had more socialist values, I don't think we would be as worried about this. I think AI is a threat because of the free market capitalist society pushed in North America more so than.
Okay, several concerns with that. I think the problem I have, and we need to get moving because we've been talking for an hour. I think I'm going to leave the Nightmares of Sushi review for next episode.
Okay.
But wait a second. I think the problem I have with that statement is the same problem I have with guns don't kill, people kill. Firstly, putting all AI in the same sack, I'm not keen on that either, because there are AI things that do other things. Like
Absolutely.
AI that's being used right now to examine medical data to try and diagnose quicker, for
Yeah.
example. My company is working on that. Or AI that is being used to identify patterns in photographs that could help us find missing people, for example. There are legitimately good uses for AI. But when we think about the evils of AI, we think about the AIs that are being designed to replace people. Generative AI, that's been designed specifically to replace people.
Hmm.
That's it. Nobody thought, and I know that the owner of this core of this Mid Journey said, "Oh, no, we did this because we wanted to help artists." Bullshit. Complete other bullshit. Don't give me that. Okay, if you want to bring art closer to people, I buy that. Okay, you are not, because what AI produces is not art, but that's a different debate. But that is not what those technologies are doing or were designed to do. They were designed to replace, to not need artists, to try and make everyone an artist. So, yeah, sorry, but there are inherent problems with the technology, just like there are inherent problems with guns. Just like if you
Yeah.
tell me, oh, but guns were invented so people could hunt and eat. So they weren't inherently bad. They were killing machines from the very, very beginning. It's just that the difference
Yeah.
between killing a deer or a bison and killing a human was a brawl in a pub. Okay, but
Yeah.
that's the way they were invented and what they were invented for. So no, I'm sorry, but that technology was created to replace people. So I don't see how that technology
My issue,
is
my
people.
issue is primarily referring. I mean, I understand, and this is one of the things I thought of, because I thought of, as I was thinking in my head. This is many weeks ago, and I thought of, when I was thinking about this, that um that we that is that same equality agreement, right? Where people are going to look at the AI debate as in, people don't, guns don't kill people. But in that same context, I know that, once again, like, generative systems, you know, they they were designed to do this. Guns were designed to do this. And my issue is that, yeah, and I believe personally, even though I know hunters, I oddly enough, I know, yeah, my father-in-law is a hunter, but he never tries to claim weapons for self-defense. I've never even seen his weapon, but I do know he does hunt. And as long as I am not a vegetarian, I really have issues trying to condemn his hunting. I'm like, if
Oh,
I'm
I
going to
can.
eat, yeah,
I,
yeah,
I can condemn the hunting just like that.
yeah.
It's easily.
Hmm?
Easily. I have an argument because I'm not a vegetarian. I eat meat
Yeah.
gleefully. I love a big steak. Absolutely love it. I absolutely abhor hunting because
I can't do it. I can't do it. But I feel like I have I haven't figured out a good point
oh, I
to
can tell
try to
you.
condemn it as someone who's not a vegetarian.
I can,
Okay.
and I have a very personal story that I will tell you in private. I don't think I want to share that
But I'll continue
in
my point,
public.
though. I would love it if generative systems had, if we could, like, someone's like, was like, I believe in absolute gun control. I believe in stringent gun control, like Australian level, better than Canada level of gun control. I wish we could do the same to generative systems. Like, once again, generative systems were designed in such a way where their inherent purpose was to remove artists from the equation. I know artists that have employed it as part of their arsenal, and I can see its advantage. And I wish there was some magic wand that I could wave where it remains a tool just to those people who could responsibly use it. But like guns, it's really hard to do that. It's easier with guns because they're physical objects. But with AI, it's not. It's something that any single person can use, and there's no regulation anywhere. So
I think the
AI right
time,
now is like the Wild West.
yeah,
Everyone can get an AI and pull the trigger.
correct. I think eventually we will come to a point where using AI has been so normalized, and there are even ethical ways to use it. But right now, I would advise against it. I would only advise what I keep advising people: learn about it as much as you possibly can, learn what it does, how it does it as best as you possibly can, and learn to recognize it as quickly as possible, as best as you possibly can, because that is going to be the only and the best way to protect yourself against it. That
And
is
also the
all I have to
best way
say.
to have a conversation about it too.
Yes, exactly. We need nuance in this realm. But
Yeah.
anyway, we've been going for over an hour now,
Mhm.
and I think we should leave it until next week.
Done.
So we can do some reviews and talk about whatever else manage. I mean, maybe we'll have even more comments about my gay videos. We can talk more about that, which would be absolutely fucking hilarious. To
But
be
what?
honest,
Say again?
we have more bashing comments against the
Oh,
gay
yeah.
videos and see what happens. I may be releasing more gay videos because why not? But until the next time, people, we would love to hear what you have to say, whether you support gay pride or not. Tell us so we can own you easily enough. And feel free to email us at podcast@gmsmagazine.com, which would be great. Or find us in social media. I'm still on Twitter as at GMS Magazine, and on Facebook as well, which is the social network that I visit the most. I am on Instagram, on Blue Sky. Just find me. There will be links down there in the video description.
This is Chris from DSX Machina. Find me on all social media channels. Even X, even though I go there maybe once every 2 months at this point. But yeah, find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok under DSX Machina.
We will talk to you in the meantime very soon. Not my dog, who's already sleeping behind me.
Oh, he's out.
Totally.
I saw him playing around, and then
oh, he woke up. He heard we were talking about him, and he's very clever. Anyway,
yeah, wait, literally, like, what? Food coming?
See you all next week.